The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is November 29th, 2025, and once again we are going to look at the situation within Ukraine. So, let's start. First of all, we are going to talk about the big corruption scandal that recently just broke out in Kiev. So apparently Andrei Yermak was, by the way, just to give a bit of details about him, he's like Zelensky's main advisor and effectively the second man within Ukraine. Not the prime minister, not the speaker of the Central Rada in Kiev, it's him, Yermak. And apparently he got caught up in this major corruption scandal, and as a result of this scandal, like, unfolding, like, as of right now that is, he has been forced to resign under constant pressure from not just from Ukraine, from Russia, but also the United States. And from what I understand, it appears that the man who's going to lead the negotiations now, so-called peace negotiations, that is, between Russia and Ukraine, will be former Defense Minister Umerov, who is a Crimean Tatar. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't really know if anything will seriously change with Yermak being gone. Ukraine is still very corrupt to the core, and even if you get rid of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like corrupt officials at once, 5 new corrupt officials are just going to come in, and the cycle will just repeat itself. Ukraine is not, like, one of the most corrupt countries in Europe for a reason. It's literally one of the worst. It is it's like so poorly, like, managed. Because most of these people don't see a country to run. They see a bank account that they can embezzle off. That's what Ukraine is to these people. It's literally their personal piggy bank. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the situation on the front. Because the corruption scandals, while pretty bad and could be devastating to Zelensky as it was for Assad in Syria for the last, like, 3-4 years before his actual fall, we got to remember that the war is still ongoing with Russia. And, yeah. But yeah, I urge all of you to keep an eye out on that big corruption scandal, because it could determine if we are going to see any, like, talks progress, or perhaps the Russians could advance at a much faster pace in the coming months, it is, before the next mud season, which will start in late February to early March of 2026. So, let's start with the Zaporizhzhia direction. Now, apparently, there is some conflicting reports regarding the town of Stepnogorsk. So, Military Summary, which is ran by Dima, and this Serbian troll by the name of Dzokovac, apparently have been given interesting info. Apparently, the Russians control most, if not all, of Stepnogorsk. However, the reason why we don't have any videos coming from here is due to the fact there's, like, so many damn FPV drones, like, flying into this place. So the Ukrainians effectively don't have that much control over both Primorsk and Stepnogorsk. But because of the drones that keep swarming all over the area, they're able to stop the Russians from consolidating their positions in these two towns. But in the end, is it really going to matter when the Russians do eventually take full control of both? Probably not. It won't. But yeah, I keep an eye on here because it seems to me that we're getting close to the truth on what's really happening in Stepnogorsk. And if you ask for my personal opinion, I think the Russians did in fact take the town. But again, that's just my personal assessment of the situation. Not really an expert's assessment, that is. Now, as for the Gulayipole / Dnipropetrovsk direction, it's been kind of stagnant since the last time I made a video, though the Russians are advancing quite well across the fields. going to Gulayipole or Gulayipole. As far as I know, the Russians have taken a good chunk of the village of Dobropila, which is adjacent to the Gaicha River, and they're also closing in on the village of Varvarovka. And also it appears that the Russians have, in fact, entered the town of Gulayipole from the east, breaking out from their positions within the deep south here, which they had been stuck in for a very long time. But now that the Russians are advancing from the north and from the northeast, they're now finally able to enter Gulayipole without many issues. Now, they still have to take control of this road here, but otherwise they can now enter the town from, like, from basically the east and the south. They can, like, do that. Though it's obvious that right now we don't have much information, because apparently Vostok has not published a flag like video. You know their epic flag videos in which they would put on some Battlefield 1 victory music that you would hear in the multiplayer campaign, and you would see the guys flying their flags over the settlements that they captured just to prove to the mappers hey, we got this place. You can now paint it in favor of us. Yeah, Vostok has not published something like that in over a week now. This leads me to believe that they're saving a lot of stuff for a big video. And I feel like they're going to play things on the safe side just to ensure that Ukrainians don't know where they are, not only within the town, but also within the other villages. And there's also a report circulating right now, according to Ukrainian sources, that the Russians have crossed the Volcha River and apparently are contesting right now for the village of Harasamivka. Now, take that one with a grain of salt, but at this point, I wouldn't be too surprised. But one thing for sure is that if this report were to be true, then that would mean Zarachny has been captured by the Russians. And it also means that they will not only have consolidated their positions on the river, but it also will allow them to attack the small town of Ternovate, which would give them essentially a clear pathway to this road that goes to Orikov. And I am expecting the Russians to focus on taking Orikov in 2026 after they clear the town of Gulayipole, which, in my opinion, is a far more important place than Orikov is. So yeah, once Gulayipole is taken, along with collapsing at the same time, because I almost said that is, but I might as well just say it now. But yeah, once Gulayipole is taken, then Orikov is next. And yeah, it's just a matter of when, not a matter of how at this point. And Donald Trump is trying to get a peace deal now before the Russians take even more land. And even General Zaluzhny himself said in a recent interview with the media, I think with a mainstream media outlet, he said that the situation for Ukraine, when it comes to the terms of the peace agreement, should it ever come, is only going to worsen as time goes by if we don't get something done. So, I mean, he didn't literally say that, but he said something like that. He implied that if we don't stop the war now, then Ukraine is just going to lose more territory, and that complete victory, while we want it, it's no longer possible to achieve. It's just not. Now, Ukrainians have also claimed that they have recaptured the village of Ivanovka from the Russians in Dnipropetrovsk region. But the problem, though, with the video that they posted, which was, by the way, from Deep State, that is, was that we don't have any geolocations of the guys that were supposedly captured. And there's no flag raisins, too. They're just saying, oh, we recaptured Ivanovka. Slava Ukraini, right? So yeah, I'm gonna hold off on coloring my that village until then, but Syriac might, just saying, because he uses Deep State a lot. Now, as for the city of Pokrovsk, nothing much has happened in this direction, though there are now confirmed reports that the Russians have not only taken the coal mine north of Udachny, completely, but also it appears Russians have also started the battle for Grishino and are advancing north from these fields here. and have also locked up the TO-406 road that would go from Mizova all the way to the city of Pokrovsk. So the battle for Grishino has started, and once the Russians are able to capture this, then Pokrovsk will no longer be under the threat of any Ukrainian FPV drones. Well, and also artillery shellings, it is. In Mayanograd, things are only worsening for the AFU. So basically, the entire southern portion of Mayanograd has fallen to Russia, and according to Anatoly Radov, the Russians have taken all these commie blocks here and have advanced as far as here. So roughly more than half of Mayanograd is now under Russian control. And if you, combine this with this, the Russians have now partial majority control over the city. And not to mention that there is a small gray zone here growing as well in favor of the Russians, like 2. So the pocket is being squeezed out, and more Ukrainians are being basically martyred as we speak. And in addition, the Dobropila counteroffensive by the Ukrainians has failed. There's also now reliable reports circulating that Rodinsky has now been cleared of Ukrainian soldiers that attempted to take the town during their failed counteroffensive in order to unblock the city of Mayanograd. Suketsky is not in a very clear position right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Russians take it back. Because in recent times, it has now been confirmed that the Russians have fully recaptured Zetishuk, Nikhonorivka, and finally Dorozhine. Radov has also pointed out the Russians are also advancing towards the town of Beletsky as well. So it's probably going to be contested during December, if you ask me. And if Beletsky falls, then I don't really see much stopping the Russians up until basically the city of Dobropila itself. So Dobropila offensive for the Russians is back in full swing. And also, in addition to that series of good news for the Russians, they have also finally captured the village of Shakove and have also seized half of Sofivka. And should they take this, Turetsky is a sitting duck, and once they take that, then we can count the days to win the Ukrainian gains here outside of Zoloty Kolodiaz will be reversed once again. And thus, the Russian offensive towards Dobropila will be further intensified. So, there's a very big likelihood that in the next couple of months from now, going into 2026, that a lot of this could get recaptured by the Russians. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it could happen again. But time will tell. The Russians are continuing their advances towards the city of Konstantinovka on the TO-504 road. And also, the Russians apparently took this big, these big fields here, that are adjacent to the Klibambutsk Reserve, or water reserve, or something like that, or reservoir. And also, in addition, the Russians have also advanced again in the city of Konstantinovka proper, that is, not proper. I don't know why I said those things, but it doesn't matter. The pocket here has been completely cleared out, which is in Pridachine. And then going further up north, the Russians have seized full control, most if not all control, of Vasyukovka. And there's even reports that they have also captured the village of Pazino, too. Savito Pokrovsky is about to be contested, if not contested by now, because the Russians have advanced again from the village of Zvanovka. And in the city of Siversk, there are some conflicting reports regarding the commie blocks here. Some say it's under Russian control, some say it's a gray zone, some say it's still Ukrainian control, but they're withdrawing towards the parts of Siversk that are on the western side of the Bakhmutka River. And going to the Liman direction, the road that would go between Siversk and Liman has been completely cut off. And it seems to me that the Russians are not really in a rush to take the city of Liman, at least not this year, that is. I mean, they still could if they really want to, but as far as I know, the Russians seem to be diverting their strategy to flanking the city of Liman instead. Sort of like what they did last time when they went for it the first time, that is, in May 2022. So they're aiming to capture the village of Dibrova and also the village of Uzerne. Should they capture both, then I honestly don't see how the Ukrainians will be able to stop the Russians from not only taking Liman, but also encircling it, which is arguably even worse. I mean, I think they got encircled before in Liman, especially when the British got blown up, and a lot of Ukrainians died because of that. So yeah, I honestly don't think the Russians are in any rush to take Liman city itself, but it's something to think about. Radov also reported that the Russians are advancing in Dobroshive, and then there's also reports that the Russians are advancing towards the village of Kurovy Yar, which is not far from the Oskol River here, that would go into the Kharkiv region. Now, in the Borova direction, or the Oskol direction that is, the Russians have consolidated their control over Briivska and Drivka, and are also now advancing on the town of Borova itself. Should they take this, then they're going to have no issues whatsoever clearing out this pocket here, and it will make the situation for these Russian troops here much easier. Kupiansk has virtually next to no activity, and then going to the town of Liman, not Liman, Volchansk, that is, the Russians are continuing their quest to clear out the remainder of Volchansk, of the armed forces of Ukraine here. I mean, they've pretty much been defeated already. And there's also reports of the Russians now contesting for the villages of Liman and Vilcha. Vilcha having this very American suburb, look-alike, setup here. Liman, though, is more of the traditional Soviet/Russian-style village. But it seems like as of right now, they control or at least contest over 50% of it. And once they capture this, then they're going to have no issues whatsoever taking Vilcha. And then we can start talking about a push towards Billy Clodiaz. And Sumy front is still dead. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's video, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed it, found it informative and somewhat entertaining, I guess. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So tell me in the comment section below what you think of the recent updates in Ukraine, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.